everybody, here's another installment in me playing with fire. Another one of my favorite beads to make are flower beads. I like to incorporate into earrings or rings or necklaces, and so I thought I would show you one of my other favorite beads to make today. So I'm going to start out with a 3/32 mandrel dipped in my bead release, and I'm going to make a base bead. Looks like ochre green, and just an average size, maybe 8 to 10 millimeter spacer. And this is going to be the base of our flower, or the center of our flower bead. You can do these off the end of the mandrel too, like to make a pendant or whatnot, and then pluck it off and put a veil on it. That's also pretty fun. Alright, so here's our base bead. I'm going to melt that down really quick here. We'll get started with the fun part. Almost melted down, just about there. Get my dimples looking good here. So here's my little base bead, not too big. Then I'm going to choose my base color for my petals. And I think today I would like to do kind of a purple on purple. So I'm going to use, if I can find a piece. I know, my desk is always a mess. Flash that in the flame here while I'm looking for what I want. Oh, there it is. I'm just going to use dark violet, again by Fetra, and I'm going to make 5 dots around the circumference of my bead. And what I do is I start by making 1 dot, and I rotate it so the dot that was facing me is now facing upward. And I know where on the shoulder of the bead to put my next dot. And you don't want them touching, but if they touch, it's okay. It's not going to be the end of the world. And then I rotate again. And dot. And rotate again. And dot. And finally, my last dot. Now you want these to be good and adhere to your base bead. You don't want your petals falling off. So there's my 5 dots. So I'm going to start melting these in, and I really concentrate where the violet is meeting the base bead to get that stuck on there really solid. I do not want to melt it totally flat though. So I've got it attached firmly, and I'm going to take my handy dandy tweezers and I'm going to pat that dot down. Just give it a squish. And I'm going to repeat that all the way around my bead. It's really fun to do these in a bunch of different colors and do layers for your petals. Or sometimes I do this base dot and then I dunk it in frit and then add some clear glass so my flower has clear tips. And that's pretty fun too. No, who am I kidding? Just most everything about lampworking is fun except for possibly cleaning the beads. Alright, so I have my base bead done. All my dots are flat, and you can notice they're not perfect. Right? That's okay. So now I'm going to take my transparent purple. I'm going to soften that flame up a little bit. And I'm going to come back in and dot right on top of those opaque violet dots that we just did. And now I'm going to do some really big dots. So I get a pretty good sized bit of glass melted, and I kind of glom it on there, hold it for a minute, pull it up, and do a little twirl. And pull up and twirl. Notice I'm kind of fanning my bead in and out of the flame. I don't want that base bead to crack. Oh, there I had a little handshake and my petals are touching each other, so we'll come back in and fix that. Not a biggie. Pull up and twirl. Okay, so here's kind of what it looks like now, kind of a star. I'm going to come in and just melt the tops of these in a little bit and flatten them just a bit. So in a minute I can come back and add more glass. This isn't enough to make good flower petals, so we want to add a little bit more. Oh, and here's my one that's touching the one next to it. Here's what I'm going to do. My handy dandy X-Acto knife, I'm going to heat where those two petals are touching. And I'm just going to come in, push down, and just redefine that petal shape just a little bit more. And squish. And squish. Okay, so now I've got them all kind of flattened on the top. And don't worry that I haven't really melted in the clear or the transparent to that opaque yet. We're going to get to that in a minute. So you could add a different color on the end of this. Some pink or ink blue would be pretty. I'm just going to stick with the purple for today. And I'm going to go around and add another round of big dots. Dot. Dot. I feel like George Surratt. Okay, so it kind of looks like a wonky octopus or a star. Now I'm going to come in, I'm going to turn my flame down just a little bit. I'm going to start heating each individual leaf or petal. And what I do is I heat one side, and I aim kind of between the flowers. I really want to get that glass adhered to the opaque base. So I hit that with quite a bit of heat first. And then I come in and I heat the whole petal until I can tell they're really solid together. See how it's kind of droopy there? We want that. When it starts to droop, I flip it up, and that's when we shape it. And I just give it a squeeze, and a squeeze, and maybe a little wiggle. Tip the leaf up a little bit, and there you go, petal. So I'm going to give this a little insurance heat real quick. Hang on. And I'm going to come back and do my next one. And for whatever reason, I always work counterclockwise. I don't know why. I don't think it matters as long as you're comfortable. So I'm going to hit in between those petals. Try to make sure you're not melting out any detail in the petal you just made. And there it's nice and droopy again. And I flip it up. Let it settle. And give it a squish. And a squish. Kind of adjust where I want that petal to be pointing. Then we go on to the next one. If I'm doing a pendant, I make my base bead a lot larger, and I add a lot more glass for the petals, but it's the same principle. And we flip up. And form our petal. kind of adjust where it's pointing. Give everything some insurance heat. I'm going to move on to the next one. Now this petal's a little weird. It's trying to move over and attach itself to its neighbor. So I just took my tweezers and I nudged it kind of over where I wanted it to be. Let gravity do a little work for me there. Give it all a little heat. And finally we're on our last one. Alright, so a little finishing touch. I'm going to turn this up just a little bit. Give everything a little nudge there. Heat it up a little bit so nothing falls off. I'm going to come in and just add a little tiny bit of detail. I'm going to heat the tip of each petal. I'm going to touch it with my transparent purple here. And just pull out a little point and tease it off the end. That just gives it a little bit of texture and more lifelike realism. You have to be careful if you're using like the pinks, like rose gold, you'll burn the color out, or striking colors. You have to do that kind of gently. This one I'm not worried about, it's not a striking color. But that just gives it a little bit of extra detail. Alright, and so there's my little violet flower. Thanks for watching. Hey honey, are you home?